Hey y'all, welcome back again here with our Becoming Unlimited support group. We did this a couple weeks ago and we loved it. I think some of y'all enjoyed it, so we are going to do this again today and then again on the 21st and see where it goes. So y'all say hey when you get on. This is part of just something that I have always kind of wanted to do with having anxiety. I've always felt like there wasn't other people that felt like me that I could talk to. So person, if you want to during any of these, or you can hang out online with us and ask your questions, interact, say hey. Let me know when y'all get on. Let us know when you get on. I see my mother-in-law. Hey, she loves you now. She wanted to bring you home with her.
That's like the best compliment.
So I was diagnosed with anxiety in 2010, and for a long time, I was talking about this on the Daily Drive this morning, for a long time I was just kind of like a victim of my anxiety. Like, I did not know that I could be in control of it myself. I didn't know that there were things that I could do. Obviously, I saw a doctor who, got me right with medication and all of that, but I didn't know that there was mind control things that I could, further. It like all works together, medication and massage, meditation, yoga, all of those things that you do for your anxiety all kind of work together. And so I just, dove into that personal growth journey and am unlimiting my thoughts now and getting in control of that. And when I put out there this week what you guys might want to hear about or hear us talk about, it was kind of perfect that Ashley comes and does this with me, because if you heard a little bit about our story last time, my anxiety that I have is more of like a chemical imbalance in my body, and I didn't really have like a traumatic childhood. We're doing this in the church that a lot of people reached out to me and said,
I know, I just went in I'm sharing and checking.
Low network, and it says recording. Okay, well, anyway, if we're still on here, say hey, whatever. But I didn't have traumatic childhood. There we go. I didn't have traumatic childhood experiences. Sorry, I don't know if y'all just saw that. It said that the internet wasn't connected. Hey, Ashley, thanks for being on. So my anxiety is kind of a little bit different, but we can also relate to each other's anxiety a little bit. So what a lot of you wanted to hear about was family situations that may cause anxiety, whether it's, a toxic family member or it's a situation that might be toxic. And I don't really have experience with a lot of that in my life because I don't really have a toxic family situation. But you also wanted to hear about boundaries. And once you, do whatever you need to do with your family situation, then how do you keep moving forward and keep up with those boundaries with your family? Because I know that a lot of times, you feel bad when when it's your family, because it's people that you love. And so I know that Ashley has been through a few things family-wise, and she's willing to share that with us for a little bit. So I'm going to let Ashley talk about toxic family situations and boundaries on the comments and see if y'all have any questions. But let us know in the comments if you're watching if you want to share what family situations you have going on, what toxic things do you feel like you have going on, and maybe we can touch on that.
Or even just what kind of boundaries you struggle upholding with anybody. I mean, in your job, in your friendships, in your family, because realistically, every relationship that you have in your life, whether that's your family, whether it's a coworker, whether it's a boss, there's a level of boundary that you have to establish, not just for everybody to equally, be accepted and heard in the situation, but to ultimately protect yourself, because you're the only person who's ultimately going to advocate for you. It's 100% human nature to put your best interest first. And when you come from a situation or an environment that is traumatic, or you did not receive the proper support or love, stand up for yourself. And keep in mind, a situation that may not look toxic on the outside can still be toxic if you look at it from a different perspective. So if you guys joined the other week, you know that I grew up, with alcoholic and drug addicted parents. My father was not around until I was a teenager. And my mom would essentially just take us to parties regularly every evening. We didn't go to school a lot. The school never really caught on to anything. But it was not a good environment. My mom wasn't good in health mentally or physically. And so by a certain age, I took on the role of caretaker of like making sure she bathed herself or actually got up to eat. And at 12 years old, that made me feel like I had to take care of people in my life, because my sister had taken care of me when I was younger and I had to take care of my mom. And then when my father came home, who was, strict authoritarian behavior, and I'd had no structure at all, it completely changed everything because I only needed to be responsible for myself, and I didn't know how to do that. And then puberty hit, and being introduced to hormones, it completely changed everything. I myself started using drugs and alcohol, and it took over my life. And I know a lot of people who have parents that were alcoholics or drug addicts, and they themselves have fallen down that path because ultimately, whatever you are taught at a certain age, you learn that and you take on that behavior for yourself. But at a certain point, you have a sense of mental awareness where you get to decide, does this thought pattern, this behavior pattern serve me for who I am, or is it serving the purpose of who I was taught to be? And then that's when it becomes your own behavior. And that's really the biggest thing with setting boundaries, is learning to own up to your own negativity and your own poor behavior. Yes, I came from a toxic environment where there was really no structure or emotional support, but I eventually got out of that situation, and I had the choice to keep reliving that because that's all I knew, or learn to set boundaries and create the life that I wanted. And so I never actually had a good relationship with my mother's side of the family. From literally as young as I can remember, they really didn't want anything to do with me. But my father's family was a great relationship. They were taking me on vacations, very active in my life. And coming from a bad environment, I latched on to that positivity because it was so good, to be wanted and to have people take care of me. But I didn't realize how toxic it actually was. Because to me, the environment that I came in, which was very picturesque, negative, all this happiness and positivity, it was like, of course, I would gravitate to that and latch onto it. And ultimately what happened is I come from a family that expects perfection, that you have to be good at everything. And if you're not, you're just not trying. To them, mental health issues weren't a thing. Medication use was not a thing that you needed to get by, and I later on learned that was something I needed to get by. And when I was medicated, I did do better. But it's about unlearning bad habits. And you can medicate as much as you want and feel better, but if you're not actively taking the steps every day in your mind and in your emotions, you're never actually going to create the real boundaries you want, and you're going to keep bending to those people because you want to keep the peace. You don't like confrontation. Maybe you just are just wanting to help as much as possible, even if it puts you out of your comfort zone. But you have to ask yourself, when is enough enough? And when are your needs equally being met to the other person's needs, whoever that may be, family, a significant other, a mentor, like someone you work with. And ultimately, you have to believe that you deserve it, that you deserve good things, that you deserve love, that you deserve to be heard, that you deserve to be listened to. And something that I have learned, and this was a hard pill for me to swallow personally, so if you are comfortable sharing, please let me know if this is something hard for you to hear as well. You teach people how to treat you. And that was hard for me to swallow because I was like, man, I treat people so good. Like, why would people not want to treat me good? I would drop everything I was doing to help somebody out, loan somebody money that I needed that I didn't even really have to give out. And when it came down to me needing help, nobody was ever really there. And it was hard because I was like, man, like I treat people so good, my family, friends, like why would people not want to give that back to me? And it's because it was honestly from a place of selfishness, because by helping them and keeping the peace, I was giving them what they wanted and getting what I wanted at the same time, at least what I thought it was, right? And people get used to that. If you keep giving somebody something and they keep taking it happily, what do you expect to happen when you stop giving it? People are going to get angry, they're going to be bitter, upset, and if you don't like confrontation, you are normally going to bend in that boundary and try to keep the peace. And all you're like, my therapist literally sat the notebook down after one of our sessions and was like, how long do you think your mental and emotional health is going to uphold this cycle? And I'd already been in this cycle for 5 years, and I was like, you know what? I've been doing it for 5 years. Who knows, right? Took 2 more years, you guys. Took 2 more years after that 5 years for me to actively realize that I did deserve to be listened to, that I did deserve to be respected, even if my respect looked different than another person's. It didn't mean mine was less. And
that's a really good point about that, because we all need different things, and that goes for our mental health as well. We all need different things mentally, and so what respect looks like for you might not look like that for somebody else.
And because people, it's natural to take things personally when you try to put your side out and you've never done that before, somebody is going to take it personal. But you have to remember that when you are expressing your point of view, your feelings to someone else, it's being filtered through their own problems, and they're only going to be willing to listen as much as they are willing to listen to you on a good day and a bad day. And if you know that that person is habitually not there for you or does not listen, and yet you continuously go back and keep trying and getting the same results, I promise you, if you stop doing what you do, they're going to start coming to you and being like, well, why don't you talk to me anymore? Well, I haven't heard from you in a while. Like, is anybody done the whole,
I know, I've heard that before.
And so, you know, it took 2 years after I made that statement to say, I deserve good things. I deserve time with my child. I deserve to be her parent. And so after I had my daughter and I moved in with family, it was because I couldn't take care of her on my own. Financially, you know, working 60 hours a week and not having her dad to help, it's a lot as a single parent. And my family was just like, well, you're not really capable anyway, so we'll just take care of things. And I ended up in this dissociation of just going through the motions, going to work, coming home, and doing that cycle and being gaslit and manipulated and mentally and emotionally abused, but never physically, right? And because I'd spent the majority of my life physically abused on top of emotionally and mentally, to me, I was like, I can handle this, you know? And then I saw them doing it to my child. And like I said, you guys, it's a perpetuating cycle. Your parents probably were never taught how to manage their own feelings and their own thoughts. So therefore, they weren't able to teach you how to manage your own feelings and your own thoughts. I know that was the case for my family, and I watched them perpetuate that cycle in my child, and they tried to do it in my sister's children, because when that's all you were ever known and raised in, that's all you know how to do. And when you have a fixed mindset and you can't see beyond that box, there is nothing outside of the box for you, and there's no reason to go there. So it really comes down to doing the deep personal work of, why am I still choosing to keep this relationship? I wanted my child to have family, right? But if my family wasn't going to respect me, and they weren't going to respect her, and they weren't going to respect what I needed, I had to put my foot down. That ended up in me physically assaulted. And I do have a protective order against my family that actually goes away this month. I am in active therapy. My daughter's in active therapy. You know, there's a lot about my daughter's relationship with my family that I don't know, but the things that I do know are very disturbing. And it made it, I hate to say it, it makes it easier to put your foot down. When someone goes after something that is the most important thing to you, it doesn't matter if it's a physical human being, an animal, a possession, because I lost everything that I've ever saved up from the age of childhood to adulthood. I don't have anymore. Photos, knickknacks, special things, all of it's missing. I don't have those things anymore. So my biggest goal was my child was going to have a different life than I had. She wasn't going to have to struggle the way I did. She was going to be her own person and be able to choose her own thoughts. And when that boundary was not respected, after I'd asked and made my statement as strong put as I could, you teach people how to treat you. And I spent 7 years letting my family walk all over me because it kept the peace. And when I decided that my freedom was more important than that peace, my family relationship fell apart. I don't really have contact with a lot of my family. I still associate with my sister. I still associate with my father. Our conversations are very not family-like. They're just, how are you? How are things? But that's because I choose it to be that way. I don't want to share my life with people who don't want to be a part of it for who I am. I attempted to change myself and everything about who I am and what I was willing to accept to create this false sense of reality that everything would be fine if I could do those things. And if I couldn't, I wasn't accepted. And it ultimately comes down to you deciding when enough is enough. No one can decide it for you. You can go back to that situation over and over and over again, but until you decide to love yourself enough, know that you deserve it enough, and know that the more you do it, the easier it gets. Those are the first steps. It's all a mental, emotional thing. You can take all the medicine in the world, you can go to all the therapy, but unless you're actually unpacking that box, figuring out why you do it, why you can't let go of it, and how it's serving you, then you can't confront why you do those behaviors to begin with, ultimately.
Yeah. And that's for like any relationship. Like, we're talking about toxic family specifically, but that's for any relationship. If you're in a relationship with a significant other or a friend that makes you feel a certain way or whatever it is, it's for anybody.
Well, but when you come from toxic family, you seek toxic relationships.
Right.
I worked for a small business. I was the only employee, right? So I wasn't allowed time off if my kid needed it.
You did everything.
I was given more work. I had to pick up everyone's slack, even though we were all meant to be a 3-person team. But because I was always willing to help out,
right,
people expect that of you. And when you stop giving that, people are going to change how they treat you. And you have to be strong in your own, knowing your own worth and saying, I deserve better.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. You said that, one of the things that you had to understand and create a boundary around was raising your daughter and the way that you wanted to raise her specifically and the respect of that situation. So now that you first of all, how did you create that boundary? What did you do? What does that boundary look like? The
boundary originally was just, we were going to move in with my partner. Like, there was no plans to disconnect from my family at all. It was, hey, I'm moving on with my life. I have a partner who loves me, who loves my daughter. We want to live together. We want to raise her. My aunt didn't want that. She wanted us, like, she even offered for Owen to move in with us, to give up his house that he bought. Like, because when you have your own trauma, you develop your own attachments.
Yeah.
And if you aren't even willing to see that in yourself, it's always going to fall back on who's taking whatever away from you.
Right.
So the plan was just move in with my partner. My aunt would still watch her.
So the first boundary was just some space.
Yeah.
Was just some space to do your things.
And honestly, the space started out like Lucy and me going over there for a sleepover on a Saturday. And then eventually it was, hey, we wanted to move out. But when I put down that boundary, I started to get manipulated and gaslit, because it was like, well, if I can just convince her, like if I can just do what I normally do,
right,
she'll just bend like she always does to give me what I want. But I had learned at that point that what I felt and what I wanted mattered. So no, I wasn't going to bend anymore. And that's when she got desperate and was like, well, like, I'll build an attachment on the house and you guys can just live it. And it's like, no, like, this is what we want to do. And then it was seeing the change in Lucy, because Lucy sleptwalk and had night terrors all through her childhood. And the first time We spent the night at Owen's, moved in. She slept through the night. And for me, that was like, okay, that's a good adjustment. But when
she felt calmer there.
But when she spent the night with family over the weekend and came back, she started having trouble sleeping. And then she started like asking me questions like, Nene wanted to know where you got money from to take care of me. And as a child, it was essentially saying, well, you can't get through me, so you're going to try to get through the person that can get to me.
So when the manipulation wasn't working for you, then the manipulation turned to your daughter. Mm-hmm. And so the first step was just putting space, and then the next step, when the space didn't
the therapist work, actually suggested we cut contact completely, which meant taking Lucia out of the school that she was in, moving into Owen's home, and just saying like, hey, we'll call you when we want to come over. We'll call you when we want to hang out.
Yeah.
We'll let you know when we're available. And that was the next step, to say like, we're serious. Like, this is how things
So then it like escalated to a bigger step and a bigger boundary.
To say, it's not going to be, you can reach out to me and I can reach out to you. It's, you wait until I reach out to you.
Well, and it's also like, boundaries don't have to be something that's like solid. Mm-hmm. It can change as your life changes.
Yeah,
it can change based on the situation.
She was welcome to text me.
Right. It started out minimal, and there was a minimal boundary, and then it had to be changed. So it's not something that you're locked into. It's something that changes based on what your needs and your growth are. So it went to another level.
The most important part about a boundary is staying solid in your values.
Right.
It doesn't matter what the other person wants. It doesn't matter what they need. It doesn't matter what they're telling you. What your boundary is what your boundary is. And if someone respects you, they're going to respect that boundary even if they don't like it, right? And so that's how I knew that I wasn't being respected, because then they were just showing up to my house with the excuse of mail, because, my address was still listed there. And it got to the point where...
So then even the bigger step of the boundary was not working.
Yes.
So then the boundary had to be reworked again.
Yeah, and keep in mind, like, so my grandmother was sick, so we were all sharing the responsibility, so I had to be flexible with that boundary, but I still had to respect myself, so it was like, I'm still involved, I'm still helpful, but I'm going to be respected. And, it got to the point where, like, literally you could go back and look at my call logs, and every other day it was just, how's Lucy doing? When is Lucy going to call me? And it made me...
So when they couldn't get to you,
it
all
turned
about
to
Lucy, where they thought they could get to.
Yes, and it ultimately...
Which then means that you get to put a boundary around that, too.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, your boundary and the things in your life can expand beyond your person.
Right.
Because... Owen became a part of my boundary. This is his home. This is our home. You're not going to come over here and disrespect that, considering all he does for us, and you should want us to have that.
So it's like subjective.
It really
or
is.
Objective.
It's
whichever way it is, but it's something that can expand,
every
change.
boundary with every relationship and every the boundary you have with your mom is going to be different than the boundary you have with your dad, different than your boyfriend,
and
different than
your
your best
different
friend.
stages in that, because the boundaries that I had with my mom as a teenager are a lot different than the boundaries that I have with her now. There's not that many left anymore.
100%. And honestly, your boundaries are going to change as you grow.
Right.
I knew when I walked away from my family and I put that boundary in place and they continued to disrespect it, that I was going to have to say, you are no longer welcome at all. Like, you are not able to come around anymore.
And so that's what I was getting at, because I think that a lot of people, that's where the anxiety comes from, is when they start to notice that there's a toxic situation or that something's going a certain way. Your first thought is you're not supposed to feel that way because it's your family. And so you have that anxiety. And so that's kind of what I was getting at, that although you're the one creating the boundary, you're allowing them to choose which way they're going to go with that.
Yeah.
So you created the initial boundary of, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get a little bit of space. That space wasn't upheld on their end as that boundary, which, like you mentioned, is a respect and support and love issue, right? And so then that boundary had to escalate into something different and had to change multiple times before you're at the place where you're at now. And so you want to give your family the benefit of the doubt because it's your family and you pay in.
Yeah, I did it my whole life, right? Because like, I've never been good at math, right? I'm terrible at math. I'm great at English. That's something that even as an adult at 25 years old, my family would like emotionally bully me about. They would be like, well, you still can't even do your times tables off the top of your head. And I'm like, and I own a business and make like, I own a business. Like, why does that matter?
How many times have you had to solve for X since you graduated high school?
Exactly, right? So other people's values don't have to be your values. And,
right.
And if they can't even be empathetic to be willing to accept it, if they don't understand it, right? Because it's easy to say like, I don't resonate with that personally, but knowing that you feel that way, like I can respect that, right? But most people can't do that because they're more concerned about themselves, normally in a toxic relationship or codependent relationship. That's how that happens. And I do suffer PTSD, and it does come from physical and emotional and mental abuse. And so ending up in that situation with my family where I was trying to instill these boundaries and they were continuing to overstep them actually triggered my PTSD. I was taking my daughter an hour out of Chesterfield to a babysitter so I could work and feel comfortable. I was struggling to leave my house, struggling to eat, struggling to sleep. I was so worked up, because we also had court, because police got involved. And, when you live in a society that does not understand mental health, you are always going to be looked at differently. And that's something that I've always struggled with because I've always wanted to be accepted, right? By family, by anybody. And I was always willing to bend to create that acceptance. I've never wanted to cut my family off, right? Who wants to do that, right? We all want our family around for our kids, for ourselves, My family is like important to me. I'm gonna be with you for the rest of your life. I will support you to the ends of the earth. Like I will be your best friend and your best confidant, no matter who you are, if I befriend you and if you're family. And family isn't just blood, you guys, because right now the majority of my family is made up of people who do not share my blood. But it was being honest and open with my family, right? Being super transparent, laying it all out on the table and seeing what their response was. That was my deciding factor of, you don't deserve to be in my life. And that was being in the courtroom and being asked how I handled the situation since being physically attacked. And I explained, literally crying to the judge, that I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, that I couldn't take care of my daughter. And you guys, my family laughed at me. They literally stood there in the courtroom and laughed at me. And in that moment, I felt so much shame and so much heartbreak. And then literally in a split second, I had a steel solid determination that they would never be a part of mine and my daughter's life ever again. Because if you put a boundary down and you're still willing to allow people to be in your life and they don't respect you, they don't deserve your time, they don't deserve your thought, and they don't deserve your presence. Because you as a human being bring a lot to the table, no matter if you suffer with anxiety, if you suffer with PTSD, if you don't have any mental health issues at all, and you suddenly develop it. Everything that you feel in every moment is valid, and nobody has the right to disrespect or belittle that, even if they gave birth to you. My own mother who gave birth to me taught me that if somebody isn't gonna respect you, they don't deserve your time. And I spent 30 years hoping that I could change that, and it didn't work. And so I finally decided I deserved better, and my daughter deserved better. Is there some days where I miss my family and I miss the good times? 100%. There was good times, but it can never outweigh the bad times and the continuous bad times. And I can still enjoy those happy memories and those happy times, but I can still do that from a distance and still live my life, and they can still live their life, and we can all still get what we want equally and be happy. They might not be 100% happy with the situation, but I gave them the option to be happy with it, and they didn't want it. So you can only be responsible for you and your boundaries. Other people can set theirs, but there's no crossing unless crossing is allowed, if that makes sense.
I love it. So the limited belief is that like you have to you have to keep people in your life no matter who they are.
Yeah.
The limited belief is that you have to be involved with someone simply because you're related to them, or because they're, you know, a long lost family friend or whatever.
Or even because somebody did something big for you. You know, maybe
Right.
somebody did a huge
Right.
thing for you.
Maybe
that
somebody
you feel
helped
indebted
you
to
at
them.
one point in,
Yeah.
in your life, and I didn't even think about something like that, but yeah. So
All of it.
the limited belief is that you have to, you know, let people into your life and have a relationship with people because they're related to you. The unlimiting belief is that you are responsible for your health, your happiness, and your health, and you are worthy of the boundaries that are available, that you can set, that you can maneuver through and change if you need to. So the unlimiting belief is that you're worthy of non-toxic boundaries and non-toxic relationships, regardless of if they're related to you or not. So you're just unlimiting, I think, your perception of who gets to have boundaries and who doesn't, right? Because I think a lot of times that's where the anxiety comes from, is that it's family, so there's not supposed to be these boundaries, and we're not supposed to...
You wouldn't do that with your parent because you do that with your friend. No. If they're going to equally disrespect you, regardless of who the person is, that boundary should be in place.
Yeah.
And it's such a hard thing because, you know, family is everything, right? They raise you, they help you get through school, you know, they do holidays with you, and you're just like, hey, it's family, like, you know. But what really is family, right? It's somebody that loves you, that supports you no matter what,
Respects you,
right?
and accepts you.
Blood is DNA. That doesn't define family, right? That just means you share certain genes and traits, and that may be traits you don't even want to share, right? Because the lack of boundaries is taught.
Right.
You are taught that your boundaries don't matter, so therefore you never instill them in yourself, and people keep crossing them. You learn that. But again, it becomes you have to take control. You have to accept that you can change it.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing in life is just accepting that you can change these things and be in control of these things. So with your family, it went from, you know, a smaller boundary of just, you know, getting a little bit of space to a bigger thing. So do you have, like, any contact with your family now?
Oh, like I said,
the ones that had the abusive situations?
I literally have them all blocked on social media. You know, like my therapist, you know, because she likes to test my boundaries because she knows that I struggle with that, right? So she, because I don't do medication, so if you guys remember from last time, I have chemical sensitivity, so I have bad reactions to medications, so they've taken me off all of them. So it's literally like crystal healing, energy work, massage therapy, chiropractic, acupuncture, mindfulness is how I manage like my issues, my PTSD, my anxiety, and I do have emergency anxiety medication that if I do all the things and it doesn't work, in that moment, it is safer for me to end up with a wrecked up stomach than it is for me to end up in because you know how you feel after it's over. You literally can't get out of bed. You don't want to do anything. So it's about choosing your hard, right? Same thing with boundaries. She encourages me. What happens when the protective order is gone? Like, would you try to reconciliate at any point? No, like, these people grew up with me. They knew about my struggled childhood.
And the boundary evolved to where it is now because of what they didn't do.
Yeah, because they chose
in the first place, right?
And that was
so they chose to go that way with that boundary.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can only be responsible for what you do with your boundary, and that even includes giving them options. But they're the ones who chooses what route to take, right? Just like you're at like a crossroad and you can go this way or you can go this way, right? Well, you know this way is happiness and you know it's quick and fast. But you know this way is going to be a little bit of heartbreak, but the happiness is going to be so much more, right? Most people are going to go the shorter route when really you should want to take the longer route because it helps you learn those boundaries. Because until you actually say what you want and what you deserve, you're never really going to know how to teach someone else until you teach yourself.
That's true. And you have to believe along with that you deserve those things and that you're worthy of those things. Because if you don't believe that, then you will not keep up with that boundary.
Yep.
Because I've had plenty of times in my life, in relationships and whatever
Yeah, I
else,
was about to say, I know you've had some not so great relationships.
Yeah.
Like,
I've set a boundary for something and haven't stuck with it because I wanted to keep the peace and please the situation, and all of that. So the unlimiting part of the thinking is to just realize that it doesn't matter who it is.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter who it is that's in 100%. Your life. What you feel you're worthy of and what you allow yourself to accept comes from your knowledge of yourself and your knowledge of you on the inside. I know now what I'm worthy of and what I want to go after in life. And, 2 years ago would have been completely different to say that. And so the unlimiting thought that I want you to remember about boundaries and setting boundaries is that it doesn't matter who it is. It could be your family, your friends, whoever. It doesn't matter who it is. You do not have to feel bad for setting a boundary with someone. You are making sure that your internal peace and safety are taken care of, and it's up to that person to choose which way they're going to go. And like with Ashley's situation, your boundary may evolve into something different and may evolve into something bigger than what it started out as. And again, that is up to the other person to decide which way they're going to go with it. But it doesn't matter if it's someone that's related to you or not. I know it's often harder when it is people that we're related to. So the unlimiting belief there is to remember that if that person is related to you, loves you, accepts you, and supports you, then you really won't need to have hard boundaries.
No.
In that kind of
and when you need to bring up a boundary, they're totally like, yeah, okay.
Right.
Because that was something that me and my sister had to teach each other because we were never taught to instill boundaries, so we overstepped each other's boundaries, and it made us like hate each other growing up because it was like, you're not respecting my space, and it's like, well, why should I? And it becomes a personal thing when you can only be responsible for you. And the thing is we take on other people's emotions a lot because, oh, well, our decision made them choose that. No. We are doing what is best for us. Yeah. They're going to do what is best for them. And if that is not in respect to you, you have done nothing wrong.
Right. Exactly. And that's the biggest point, that you have done nothing wrong if someone chooses not to respect you in the way that you need them to.
Yes.
So I'm glad that Ashley's the one to come here and talk about this because I know that you have a lot of experience with that. So your boundary now is that y'all just don't have any communication, and how do you keep up with that? Do they try to reach out with you and you have to ignore phone calls, or is it at a point now where you're
that happened before that. They were calling me a lot, messaging me a lot. And once the protective order was put in place by law, they were not allowed to contact me or come near me, or they could be arrested. But now that ends, my therapist has asked me, do you think they'll try to contact you? I said, who knows? My phone number has changed. I changed my phone number. I still live at the same address. But you know what? Even if they were to contact me, I don't have to respond.
Yeah.
I can choose to if I want. I don't have to. Will I? Probably not, because when someone chooses to treat you a certain way, they can feel bad for it later. They can learn, why they did that, and they can choose to be different. But that doesn't mean you have to forgive somebody, you guys. Yes, please forgive yourself for your own health, because bitterness and anger, it will just fester and poison you, and then you are just ultimately giving the other person what they wanted, which is control of you. And that is another hard pill I had to swallow, was that letting my emotions get out of control about stuff was exactly what that person wanted. And so by continuing to do that, I am doing what they want and not what I want, right? But that's a daily practice. And it's something that you're never going to be perfect at. Coming from a recovering perfectionist, you're never going to be perfect at it, but it's about practicing it every day, because it's like a muscle. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. The easier it is to instill that boundary. The easier it is to say, no, I, deserve this. But no, my family made the choice after I, pressed charges, to take additional steps that would make it that I have no reason to ever contact them again. And for them to reach out to me would be for their own conscience. So that's not my job to ease their conscience. You know, my conscience is clean. I did what's best for me in that moment.
Right.
And people have to accept their own faults just like I had to accept my own.
So along with that boundary, there's also the mindset shift and perspective that you have put your boundary up. They've taken, you know, you've done whatever it is, whatever the boundary is, and now it's done.
Yeah.
And, you know, you don't have to continue to stress about it. You said, you know, you don't know if you would answer or not. You probably wouldn't, but you're not thinking about it.
Yeah.
So you're not like, yeah, I would answer and tell her that, well, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, we all have our bad days. Like, sometimes I'll get frustrated about something, and when I get triggered in that emotion, my brain remembers every single time I had that feeling.
Yeah.
So then my brain will go on a tangent about all those times that I felt that way, and I'll get caught in my feelings, and I'll start to get bitter and frustrated, and it's like, no, this doesn't serve any purpose. Like, this is not doing anything beneficial for you. Yes, I'm human. Some days I just wallow in it. I take my 10, 15 and feel it.
Yeah.
But then I learn to let it go.
Right.
Because
It's not serving your purpose to be in communication with that person, regardless of who they are. So once you have set that boundary and now you're upholding it, you're also shifting your mindset about it to let go of the stress that you're carrying related to it. So if you're setting a boundary and the boundary is that I'm not speaking to this person anymore, then you're not speaking to that person anymore, and you don't have to wake up every day and wonder if they're thinking about you, or wonder if they're going to call you, or wonder if you should call them, or whatever. You have set that boundary. Right. That is
so.
That
Don't
normal.
beat yourself up about it, because that's the problem. Where we start to feel bad, like, well, I shouldn't be thinking about this. Well, it's something that happened to you. It's okay to acknowledge it, but don't live there.
Right, and you don't have to invite them back in.
Nope. And honestly, learning boundaries with my family helps me learn to better instill boundaries in my friendships.
Right, with everybody.
Yeah, like, you know, I know a lot of people over the pandemic struggled emotionally, so people who already struggled even more. And I had people that I've known 10 years that just came out of the gate disrespecting me. And there was that split second moment where my brain was like, okay, now you have to explain yourself. And I almost got to messaging out, like explaining myself, and I was like, no. I never have to explain myself to anybody, because if somebody knows you and they respect you, they know why you choose to do things. So you don't have to explain yourself. Your reasoning is your reasoning, and it should be respected. And if it's not, you don't have to associate with them.
Right, and if someone, it is absolutely okay and normal, and I'm going to encourage you to outgrow people, because when you start to outgrow people and people start to fall off out of your life, you really start to realize how much stress some people carried in your life.
Yep.
I've had a lot of friends over the last few years since I started on this personal growth journey that aren't going in the same direction, aren't interested in the same things anymore. One of my friends that I've been friends with since middle school, like 20 years, and we're no longer talking anymore because we're simply on different journeys, and my growth is more important to me than a toxic relationship with someone that I've known since middle school.
Yeah.
Because now I'm ready to grow, and if you want to grow with me or grow in your own way, and we can do this together like Ashley does with me, then cool. But if not, then my growth and my worth is what I know and what's important.
Yep.
And that's what I'm going to work towards. And it's the same thing with those boundaries. It doesn't matter who it is. The unlimiting belief is that boundaries are there for you to make sure that you're staying safe and keeping your mental health in check. Yep. You are not in control of what someone else says or does, but you're in control of how much of that person you allow into your space.
And you're in control of what you give back to that person.
Right.
You don't have to keep bending. You don't have to keep giving. Whatever you want to give, that's all you have to give. And if you've made it clear you don't want to give more, and they keep asking and pressuring you, you have the right to just say, hey, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
And it's hard because I know from personal experience, I've done not only a lot of one-on-one therapy, but a lot of group therapy. It's that you're just willing to hold on to any relationship when you've had a lack of support, because you're just afraid of losing things.
Right.
And it's learning that when you lose things, it's because it's making room for better things in your life. It's hard to see that, but, you know, look, you guys, 4 years ago, I wouldn't have even been able to talk about stuff like this. I'd have completely shut down. I'd have been crying. And some days I still do.
Same.
But it ultimately comes down to your mind and you making the mental choice that I can let this control me and I can let this dictate how my life is going to go, or I can choose to put A, B, C in place and live my life the way I want. It's not always going to be foolproof, but you still get that choice every single moment of every single day, regardless of who is in your life, family, friend, job, otherwise. It all comes back to you and your decision.
Yeah. And it's internal, based on what your purpose and what you feel your energy is aligned with. So if some relationship that you have is making your energy feel a shift, then that's for a reason. One of the best things that I did for my anxiety was just accepting the fact that everything has a season. People in our lives, jobs, friendships, relationships, marriages, church life, like spiritual life, whatever it is, everything has a season in your life.
Yeah, and whether that season is an ongoing, steady, always there, or a come and go, or a once in a blue moon, like, think of it as, you know, before you were even born, your life was already mapped out for you, right? Like, your subconscious before you were born already knew everything that you were going to go through, but you were given a human conscious to decide, am I just going to go along with this, or am I going to change how I make things work? You know, it ultimately is your choice, and the anxiety is hard to feel like it's our choice, right? Because it's like, is our choice the right choice?
Right, and we feel like is our choice the right choice, but we also feel like, am I worthy of this choice? Am I really, truly worthy of making the choice to go do whatever it is that I want to do? And yes, you are. You're worthy of all of that. And if that toxic person is the person in your life telling you that you're not worthy of these things, you shouldn't go get them, you know, have to stay home, you have to do this. I know that you've told me before that there were things that people told to you about, your daughter, and like buying clothes for her, like not spending money on things. Like, if someone is telling you something that is so disturbing to your energy that it's making you feel that stress and anxiety,
don't shift to that energy. Don't lower yourself.
Don't shift your energy to that person. Maintain your energy.
Make them meet you. Make them meet you. And if they're not willing to meet you, they're just not your people. Right. And that's okay.
Right.
Like, not everybody is everybody's person. We don't like everybody we meet, right? That's for a reason.
Right.
So that can be family too. Like, you don't always have to like everybody you're related to. You can love people from a distance. I love all kinds of people from a distance, y'all. Like, family, past friends, past relationships, because I'm pansexual, I'm into open relationships. So, like, I still associate with some exes. I still check in every so often and be like, how is life?
Yeah.
But some of them, I'm just sending good energy and never talking to them again because it doesn't serve me, right? And that's just a personal choice. Am I going to choose what serves me, or am I going to keep adjusting to serve other people?
Right. So the unlimiting belief there is that you don't have to shift or downplay your energy to make someone else feel comfortable. You live into your energy. For me, my energy, like, I was just sitting here telling Ashley, like, how crappy I feel before we got on here, but this gives me energy. This is where my energy comes from, is like unpacking stuff like this. And so I think that when we're talking about boundaries, and specifically with family, we have to, or we get to, I like to say get to.
Yeah, because we don't have to
because we don't have to do anything, but we get to change the way we think about it.
That's a mindset shift.
Yeah, we get to change the way we think about it so that we can live a happier life. So we get to look at our relationships, look at our boundaries, look at what we have going on around us, and we get to uphold those boundaries. We get to maintain our energy. Ashley gets to ignore a phone call so that she doesn't have to shift her energy for somebody else. We get to do those things. We get to maintain that boundary so that your safe place can stay safe.
Yep.
So you don't have to feel like you have to communicate with someone. You have to let someone be in your life. You have to accept something that someone is saying, y'all, because there's going to be people in your life that are going to also make you feel bad about your boundaries.
Yeah,
and make
you never text me. You never text me, right?
Make you feel like your boundary isn't a good boundary,
Yes.
or whatever, right? And that's funny that you say that, because like I have friends that I stay in contact with, but if it's not a two-way street, I'm not putting my energy into it.
Yep.
So if I'm texting you every day for a week and you don't answer me, you probably ain't gonna hear from me for a little while.
But then people will come back and be like, why haven't you been messaging me, right? But they don't
Right.
want to own up to what they did, right?
Yeah.
It's about, well, what's wrong with you?
Relationships are always a two-way street. So if something is making your energy feel that stress and that negativity, it's for a reason. And you get to figure out what that reason is, and then you get to put that boundary in place to keep your energy in check. So it doesn't matter if it's your family, if it's your friend, if it's whoever, you get to uphold those boundaries. And you do that by whatever feels good to you. Ignoring a phone call, maybe you need to go to court for something, maybe you need to, talk to someone else, you need to move out of someone's house, you need to do whatever it is.
You guys, write a letter. Whoever in your life you've needed to say all those things to that you've just never been able, write it out.
Even if you don't give it to them.
You can burn it afterwards. You just rip it up. You can do it
word
1,000
vomit it all
times.
out.
Yeah, but put it out of your brain.
Yeah.
Because your brain, your anxiety is just going to make you cycle on it until you put it elsewhere. And talk it into your phone. Write it on a piece of paper. Trash it afterwards.
Yep.
Read it to somebody you trust afterwards and ask them to just hear you so you can heal. Like, whatever you need. Don't ever feel like you can't take that step to get it. You deserve whatever many steps you need to take, just like anybody else does.
Yeah.
Like, you would never think to bail on someone else, right? You would never think to not listen to them, right? So why would you do that to yourself? Why would you keep bailing on yourself?
It? And
Right?
why do you accept it when people do it to you?
Yeah. You have to ask yourself those hard questions.
Yeah.
And it's when you find the answers to those hard questions that learning to put boundaries in place gets really easy.
Which is actually really freeing.
Yes. Oh my God.
It
doesn't feel that way at first. No.
Right. It doesn't feel that way at first, but it is absolutely freeing to have those boundaries in place where you don't have to have that energy in your space anymore.
Yeah.
So it's hard at first, but it's also freeing for your emotions and just everything.
Your energy, your level of energy,
everything. You're not
your
going to be
sleep,
stressing about
everything.
it anymore.
Yeah.
So it's all going to change. But the biggest thing that I want you to remember is that the unlimiting belief that you get to form now is that your boundaries are for you and you're worthy of whatever it is that you need, whatever bubble you need around you. You're worthy of it. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter what stage of growth they're on, you're on, whatever. Your boundary can shift and change as it needs to, but you're worthy of that space in the first place. You're worthy of setting that up in the first place and keeping your own energy in line. So don't feel like you have to keep someone in your life just because you're related to them.
Yeah.
Unlimit that thought process and just realize that you're worthy of feeling happy, feeling positive,
Feeling the way you want
feeling
to feel.
the way you want to feel, and being who you want to be, regardless of what someone else's toxicity says about you.
Yep.
What someone else says, thinks, whatever, is not on you. That's up to them and in their control. In your control is what you do and what you think about yourself. So you're worthy of those boundaries. And now you get to take the next step of figuring out what you need to do. And it's probably going to be hard.
Yeah, and it's different for everybody.
It's different for everybody. It might change down the road. You never know. But just unlimit yourself to the energy of having a boundary set. You deserve that boundary, that space. And when we say boundary, it doesn't just mean like some negative thing has happened. Like, you have boundaries all over your life with whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't mean necessarily that it's just because some big negative thing has happened, right?
But
you still have your positive boundaries.
In your job, you have to give a 2-week notice, right? Well, you know, your manager's grandmother is really, really sick, but you really wanted to go do this. No. If your mental health and your body is telling you you need to do this, yes, it is sad what another person is going through, and you want to be considerate. It's okay to feel empathy, but do not change what you need to do for you, for other people. It's in any aspect of your life.
Yeah, and one of the things that I started to do for myself is just creating a boundary around a morning routine, which is a positive boundary to have. I get up and I have my coffee and I watch a documentary or read a personal development book and, you know, check through email. So I've set a boundary of a good morning routine so that I can get my energy in check. So
you have boundaries with yourself, you guys.
Right.
And that's why you don't have boundaries with other people, is because you don't have boundaries with yourself. You're not holding yourself accountable for the things you need. So why would you expect anyone else to, right? Because they see you not doing it for yourself, so they know that they can get past it with you. Mm-hmm. It all comes back to you. You can only control you. Like Sarah says with her, you know, my partner and my daughter know we actually have a little light at the end of the hall. If the light is green, you are welcome to interrupt. If the light is red, I am busy. Do not knock. I am on the phone. And that's the boundary, the expectation that when I am doing this, you cannot bother me, but you can bother me any other time. And it's important to even instill those boundaries with your kids, you guys, because if not, my child would just walk in the room talking a mile a minute about Minecraft when I'm in the middle of a conference call with a client.
Very true.
It's true. So you have to put boundaries in every relationship. People think it's a negative thing. It's not. Your life cannot function without boundaries.
Right. It's a positive way to keep your safe space
and to keep negativity out,
whether you're setting a boundary around a negative person or whether you're setting a boundary around a journaling ritual or a morning ritual or work time or whatever it is. You get to keep those boundaries around you so that you can continue to unlimit your energy, because when you feel the stress and the anxiety that comes from not upholding boundaries, from not staying consistent, from not staying true to what you said you were going to do, that's when you start to feel all of those anxious feelings and the stress feelings. And that's blocking your energy from the abundance that's there for you. It's blocking your energy from the creativity that's there for you. It's blocking your energy when you're allowing yourself to feel stressed about a boundary with someone or, you know, whatever it is.
Just allowing yourself to stress about anything.
Right, allowing yourself to stress about anything.
You make the decision. Don't second guess yourself. You made it for a reason.
Right.
Right?
I heard on personal development one time, would you rather leave someone's energy feeling depleted or would you rather leave someone's energy feeling more energized? And I don't want to leave anyone feeling depleted when they leave my space. And so I make sure that I'm creating that safety within myself first. Even when I do feel depleted, I do the things for myself because I have those boundaries. Again, where I might take a nap, I might take a bath, I might, you know, whatever it is. So it's not just because some big traumatic event has happened and we have to like cut somebody out of our life.
We need structure.
We need structure in our minds. We need, that's why I like to say we get to, because we get to free our minds of that stress. You get to choose if you're going to keep living in that stress or if you're just going to set a boundary.
And you know what? I mean, it's normal. Like, if that's all you've ever known, it's normal to just live in that. But you still get the choice to say, am I going to keep living in that? Or am I going to try something different?
Yeah.
Like, it still all comes back to you. And that's hard because we've all been a victim to something at some point in our lives, an accident, you know, something. And when it keeps happening, it's easy to just fall back into that mentality of like, well, I deserved it. Well, I don't deserve anything. And then all you're doing is calling that into your space and creating that in your life. So you get to decide that I'm going to build the life I want by not only establishing boundaries for others, but for myself to elevate myself to where I want to go.
Yeah. So like I was saying, I think that the biggest thing that people start to feel bad or anxious about when we're talking about boundaries is just who the boundary is there for. And so that's why people were asking, right, or even why. So that's why people were asking about family specifically. And so the unlimiting belief there is that it doesn't matter who it is that you're interacting with. If someone is down for you and there for you, you're going to know that. If someone's energy is not there for you, you're going to know that, and you get the opportunity to keep yourself space. To keep yourself safe.
Safe,
Whatever
and keep your safe
space it is
All the
that you
S's.
need. Words are hard sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's not like this big overthinking, negative, dramatic thing.
Sometimes it's literally just about waking up and saying, what do I want out of my day?
Right. What do I want to accomplish
How
today?
am I going to make that happen? By putting this boundary in place. If I know I have to be here by this time, I can't allow anything to put me off. And if I do, I'm making that choice to put myself behind. But it all comes down to waking up every day and deciding what you want and sticking with it.
Yeah.
And even when you feel like it's not working, and even when you may not be sure, even when people may make you think you're doubting yourself, you just have to be consistent with it.
The difference is when you don't quit on it.
I promise if you guys practice it for 30 days, like literally just waking up in the morning and just saying, this is what I want, and just saying it every day and working to uphold it, you will notice in 30 days, like, wow, that got really easy to just say it and believe that it's really going to happen.
It becomes so much easier to make these things part of your daily practice when you stay consistent with them in the beginning. This is probably the longest time in my life that I have stayed consistent with my own personal growth, and I see the difference in it now
versus
you know, when I would start something and then quit on myself and then try to start again.
I'm sure you noticed a difference 8 months ago, a year ago, 2 years. Like you can see
the difference in yourself.
It really takes time. It's not like it's going to be better the next day. Like the next day might still be rocky, and it might be rocky for a couple of weeks, but it's knowing that by just continuing, it's eventually that season is going to come back for you.
Yeah. And you can have a day where like you know need to just not you need to just not think about things and do hard things and like whatever, and that's how
honor yourself.
You keep that energy in check. So it's literally all about understanding who you are on the inside, and then how you can keep your own energy in check, because that's different for everybody too. What I do to get myself and my energy back in check is different than what other people do, what Ashley does, and whatever. So it's all about knowing who you are, what you want out of life,
and what works for
what works for you, knowing that you're worthy of not having to accept something just because someone is related to you, and knowing that you're worthy of waking up every day and making the decision to live the best life that you can live.
100%.
And it's hard in the beginning. It is so hard. But the longer you stay with it, the longer you go without quitting on yourself, the easier it gets.
Practice makes progress.
I
don't like the perfect, but it makes progress.
Right. Practice makes progress. And it's so true. A growth journey, there's no end destination.
Just continue.
I'm just trying to have a better day today than I did yesterday.
Yep, and then tomorrow, I'm just trying to make tomorrow better than today.
Yeah. So the unlimiting beliefs with boundaries are that you don't have to feel bad. You are worthy of whatever space you need. You're worthy of a boundary if you need it. You are worthy of doing the things that work for you and keeping your energy in check, regardless of who it is. If it's a family member that you need to rework your energy with, and they really want to be in your life, then they'll be along with you. If not, then maybe they set their own boundary and you didn't even have to worry about it. So the unlimiting belief is that you're worthy of all of those things that you want, and if someone is bringing the toxicity to you, regardless of if they're related to you or not, you can give them a boundary so that you keep yourself safe and in check. So I think that covers a lot of boundary talk. Thank you guys so much for being here. We're going to do this again on the 21st. You can check out dailydrivecoaching.com to see all kinds of information. What's your website?
Oh, it's wellnessawaits.org.
Wellnessawaits.org is Ashley's website that you can check out and see all of her good things. Again, we'll be back on the 21st, so keep letting us know what stuff y'all like to talk about, because we've had some life experiences that we don't mind sharing.
I'm literally getting ready to go take my dog to the vet, and I plan to just sit here and check everybody's comments and send love. So you guys are welcome to message me anytime. If you want to message me about something specific that I talked about today that maybe you can relate to, that you don't feel comfortable sharing on the live, you're more than welcome to personally message me, and I'm happy to share some of the things that I've done therapeutically, a lot of holistic techniques and meditation, just whatever, you're welcome to message me anytime.
Yeah. We just want to make sure that you know that this is a safe space. We're all here to unpack our mental health stuff together. If you relate to Ashley and need to reach out to her, cool. If you relate to me and need to reach out to me, that's cool too. But thank you for being here online with us. If you ever want to come down in person, it's not a problem. Let me know. We will be back on the 21st to do this again. And just remember that you're worthy of all of those things that you need to do to keep your energy in check. So we love you guys. Thank y'all for being here.